This is Cassandra Toomey, WHSS case manager, on our second discussion series video. We are presenting today on preparing for the winter.
And I'm Dan Mills, the housing navigator, also with WHSS. So let's get started. Cassandra?
So let's cut to the chase. With the colder months coming up, we want to help you learn ways that you can weatherize your rental to help cut back on energy costs. During winter, there are also risks with snow and ice. We will discuss the best practices based on your lease and local city ordinances. Finally, if you're unhoused, we will discuss ways to stay warm and where to go with the colder weather.
So once you're in your unit, let's talk about weatherizing that unit. First thing I want to say is always check with your landlord. Make sure that you ask permission to do any sealing or any kind of weatherization program. And it's okay to ask them. Maybe they'll even provide some of the resources for you. So any of the window insulator kits that you can see on the shelves where you can shrink wrap your windows, they might actually provide those for you. So don't be afraid to ask and keep your landlord in the loop. Because remember, if you damage the property by using any of these products, then you're going to be responsible for it. So some of the older homes that are out there that are going to be rented out may have some poor insulation. They're air insulated. They don't have any insulation in the walls. They have very little insulation in the attic space. And some of the older pipes are not real well insulated. So you're going to have that coming in the wintertime. So make sure you do the best that you can. If you're looking for gaps and things like that around doors, you can do that a couple of ways. I like to close all the blinds and turn off the lights on the inside because I live alone, and then I can look outside during the day around the windows and doors and see if I can see any gaps in those door frames to see if any of the weather stripping needs to be replaced. And you'll be able to see that pretty easy. If you've got a second person or you get some help with this, you can do it at night. Have somebody go outside, take a really bright flashlight, and go around the window frame and the door frame, and look and see if you see any of those gaps. And you can identify those and do what you can do to seal those up. Some of that stuff you can do with caulk. Some of it you can simply pack it full of insulation material, paper towels, things like that. But remember, if you see something that's a problem, keep your landlords informed on that, and they might actually do some of those repairs for you. Okay. If you notice anything that's severe, make sure that you let the landlord know, because again, landlords are responsible for maintaining the property, but some of the things inside you can do to keep yourself a little bit warmer and cut down on your utility bills if you're paying for those. Okay. And if the landlord's including utilities, then it's really in their landlord's best interest to make the place as energy efficient as you can. Now, if you look on the screen here, we've got a couple of things here about where some of those gaps are, or where most of the heat loss is around windows. Old single pane windows are huge for heat loss. That's why the newer windows, either vinyl, aluminum, or wood clad, are double or triple insulated. There may be storm windows. You can just shut the storm window, and that'll save you a ton of heat. Weather stripping around doors, you can fix that really easily. They make really inexpensive products. You can pick that up over at any of the home goods stores, or home supplies or hardware stores will have that. And pipes you can insulate also with the foam insulate. And I want you to also be aware of the Focus on Energy program. If you just look on focusonenergy.com, most of the energy providers in our area are part of that. I know WPS is, and you can order once a year free energy efficient products, things like LED lighting, low flow shower heads, insulator kits for either the doors or windows or even pipes and water heaters. And so you can get those materials free once a year. If the utilities are in your name, I encourage you all to look into that, sign up for that, and get that product. Once a year you can do it, and they will ship it directly to your door. North Central Community Action Program in our area also has a weatherization program, and that's that weather assistance program. So by all means, check that out and see if you're eligible for it. One of the other agencies in the past, there's a Faith in Action program here in Wausau, and they have done some of this in the past also. So that's worth exploring, and any of the other energy companies out there. So We Energies, Marshfield Utilities, they may have those things as well. So by all means, explore those. Some of the other temporary things, if your landlord's not willing to let you make altercations, so using the shrink wrapped energy sealer or window sealers, those are real easy to use. It's a double-sided tape, a heat shrink material that you put on there, and then you just use a blow dryer and lightly go over that, and it'll shrink that up and make it nice and tight. But again, that double-sided tape make damaged finishes. So if you aren't sure about whether you can use it where you're trying to use it, I encourage you to just use a small sample of that tape, put it on that surface, and then try to peel that away and see if it damages the surface. Because if you just do a little bit of it versus an entire window, that's a whole lot less damage that you did to that surface and a whole lot less deduction on your security deposit later when you decide to move out. But the other things you can use is they make these tubular draft stops that are just felt wrapped insulator material. Some of them are kind of creative. I've seen some that look like animals, some that look like Santa Claus around the holidays. You can make these things too just by yourself. If you just take a set of old pantyhose and stuff it with stuffing material, like out of an old pillow, and then you can make that yourself, and you can shove that under those doors that maybe not get used real often, or you can put it in front of the door that does get used real often and then just replace it every time you open the door and close the door, and that'll help stop some of that draft. Okay. um, those are some of the things that you can do if oh gosh, uh, if you need to have a lot of weatherization done, like I said, that energy assistant, that weather assistance program, if you're in a low income setting, you may be eligible for those kinds of programs, and your landlord may be more than willing to let you participate in. But the bottom line is, before you undertake any weatherization on the unit, talk to your landlord about it first. Make sure that you have permission to do, and if they don't want you to do it, then let's figure out another way. And that's where you got to do those temporary measures, stuff in those gaps with those door stoppers. You can even use old towels, cut them into strips, and stuff those in some of those window voids. I've seen a lot of things that people have done over the years just to make sure that you don't damage the unit. But that's real important. Keep your landlord in the loop and make sure you have permission to do it before you make any altercations. Okay.
And one thing to note, you can also change your curtains to a heavier material to keep in the heat as well and block out the cold air. So during the winter, you are definitely going to use more energy with your furnace, with radiator heating. So you want to cut back as much as possible so you can afford those additional costs. And that may come with budgeting throughout the year, but make sure you're prepared to take it on during those winter months, which can be sometimes up to 5 to 6 months in Wisconsin. So you can obviously start with weatherizing your rental with the permission from your landlord. You can also look into turning your ceiling fans in clockwise direction to help direct the heat back down. Um, Make sure the landlord is doing their part as well. In the state of Wisconsin, it states that a landlord must be able to keep a unit 67 degrees. And if they cannot, they must disclose that to you prior to you signing the lease. So it is really up to the landlord on what they say in the lease, on if it's able to keep 67 degrees or not. If the furnace is not producing enough heat, let them know so it can be serviced. Make sure the furnace filter is being changed. If the landlord's not doing that, ask them about that. And that all comes with efficiency of the flow. Now, some rentals may not have gas furnaces. They could also have radiator heating and electric heating, where we see that a lot in older homes. The radiators use hot water to help heat your home. Make sure those are all clean and free of clutter. If the radiator is making gurgling sounds, it takes longer to heat up, or has uneven heat spots, that may be a sign it needs to be bled. This means releasing trapped air in the radiator. Ask your landlord to assist with this issue. Do not do this yourself. Baseboard heaters are also very common. They are trying to make them more efficient these days. Keep them clean and free of clutter as well. Turn down the heaters in rooms that you don't use often. There are also a few other heating types, such as fuel oil, which is not as common. Look into turning down your thermostat. I know the first thing we think of when we're feeling cold in the house is to turn it up. Maybe instead grab a blanket, put on some warmer clothes. Even just reducing it at night can be 1 to 2% decrease in your electric bill, gas bill, with just 1 degree difference. Even more if you lower it more at night. Another thing is, if there's a programmable thermostat, use it to make sure it is getting turned down at night for those energy savings. Limit hot water use, such as dishwasher. They have a setting on most dishwashers for energy savings where just air dries are used as not as hot water. Also on washers, if you have one in your unit, there is energy efficient ones are just using the cold setting. Limit your shower and bath hot water use, and ask your landlord to make sure to turn down the water heater to 120-degree max to help keep it down for those showers, dishes, and laundry. You can also look into asking your electric or gas service provider to put you on budget billing, so you are paying an even cost year round. They look at your last 6 months of use and then even it out for the entire 12 months. So lastly, if you are struggling financially and haven't been able to budget to keep up, haven't been able to lower your energy costs as much as you could, then you should definitely apply for energy assistance. This benefit is once a year between October 1st and May 15th. The program also offers crisis assistance if you are without heat or are facing a disconnection. So once you are eligible for energy assistance, you are also eligible for the weatherization assistance program, but that program can be limited with their funding and how many people they take. So a great resource is RentSmart. We encourage any family, any individual looking to rent to use RentSmart, but they also have some great tips to save on energy, water, and money in the home. So this also includes light bulbs changing to LED. Some landlords do not let you change the light bulb, so always ask. Plug things that you are not using. Adjust your thermostat. Adjust your ceiling fan. Weatherize. Hang dry your clothes if you can. If you notice that you're having a significant amount of electric use and you're not really running much, ask your landlord. Maybe your refrigerator needs servicing, or some of the appliances need to be more energy efficient, so check in with them on that. If you have not already taken the RentSmart course, look into registering for the next one as well. So like I said, UW Extension offers a wide range of resources and education for individuals and family. On their financial education website, they lay out the tips that we have mentioned and more. Again, remember to weatherize, just dress warmer, use blankets, and conserve where you can. So on this slide, some of the things we already talked about, using the weather stripping, lowering your temperature, insulating. They also have placing the foam gaskets behind light switch, but make sure you ask your landlord for all those things. Use blankets, open curtains and drapes to allow sunlight when the sun is up. But Dan made a good point to make sure it's windows that are facing a certain direction to open those up so the sun comes in. Also, make sure that you are closing doors in unused rooms so it's heating where you actually are, and keep the heaters free of clutter and dust, that sort of thing, so they run more efficiently.
Okay, so there's a couple other things too that during wintertime, obviously, um, you're going to expend a lot more energy when you're outside trying to stay warm and doing things, and then there's a certain danger to um, to the snow and ice and slips and falls, but inside the house just as much. The one of the things that should be in every one of your units is a smoke detector and a carbon monoxide detector. That's actually required to have a smoke detector in in every unit, as well as a carbon monoxide detector on every floor. So those have to be working properly, and they're there for your safety. Um, so but a lot of houses have, they get a lot of ventilation because of the drafts that come in and out. And the better that we get with building houses, the more tight they are and are airtight. And so we run into problems with moisture, condensation, carbon monoxide buildup, um, and so we have to be careful about that. But anyway, make sure that any vents that you have on the outside of your house, take a walk around. And if the furnace is a side vent furnace and there's a little PVC pipe that comes out there, your water heater may be a gas water heater too. And I see this all the time. Guys, I'm also on a fire department, and we get paged out to people that have gas smells in their house. And a lot of the times it's this kind of stuff where they're the vent for their water heater, which is gas, or their furnace vents out through the side or up in the attic on top of the roof. They frost over and ice over and freeze, and then that plugs that draft up, and so now you get that buildup of gas. I've even seen sewer stacks, the old cast iron sewer stacks on top of people's roofs, ice over, and then it produces a smell which is similar to that of what you might expect from propane or gas. So just look at that and make sure that those vents are clear just for your own safety. Make sure that the carbon monoxide detectors are there, that they're working, um, you know, and take a look around and make sure that anything's not in front of the heat drafts. If you do choose to use space heaters, I encourage you, one, to use the safer space heaters that have automatic shutoffs if they tip over or they're bumped. The ones that are built like that look like a radiator, they tend to be a little more safer because everything's enclosed. It's just heat inside and a heat element heating up a gas or oil solution inside of this radiator looking thing, and so there's not a lot of burning embers and high electricity heat coming out. The older style ones, the ones that I'm talking about, they got the little wire coil that goes through and it's threaded. They glow real hot, and you got to be careful of those. But a lot of the newer ones do have shut-offs that if you tip over or bump it, it'll shut off automatically, and it won't restart until you either turn it off and on again or unplug it and then plug it back in. There are some old style heaters that actually use flame. Please do not use these. If you're looking at a flame style heater and that flame is not pure blue, then it is emitting carbon monoxide into your dwelling, and that is deadly. And I can't stress to you enough what that will do to you. Um, you don't even need to die from that. Um, Also, make sure that whenever you're plugging any heaters in, don't use extension cords plugged into other extension cords or power strips. We call that daisy chaining in the fire service. When we do fire inspections, we look for that kind of stuff, and we actually cite businesses for that. In a home, we don't do that, but it's still unsafe, even a home. So if you're going to use a space heater, plug it directly into the outlet. Don't use an extension cord. Don't use a power strip because you think it's safe. It is not. What that does is it generates a whole lot of heat in that cord. And if you're overloading that cord is going to start on fire. So that's definitely an unsafe thing. Um, and then if you can't, if the heat does go out, contact your landlord immediately. Make sure that they're aware of that, and do the best you can to stay warm. Cassandra mentioned a couple of things. One, wear extra clothing, get some extra blankets. Even if you've got to use those little pocket heater things, you tear it open and it'll warm you up. There are, for light, there's, battery operated flashlights and even some spotlights and things like that. But please do not use lanterns that burn propane or any of the other solutions, flammables, because they all emit carbon monoxide. And do the best you can. Keep your windows and doors closed as much as possible. If there's cold weather and we're going to be without power for some time, I know what it's like. I was without power for 7 days, and I lived out in the country, and we had nothing. I was melting snow with my turkey cooker just to feed the chickens that we had, because we were out on a farm. But it's tough. But if you have to leave the dwelling because it's too cold there for you, then leave the dwelling because it's too cold. Go stay with family, friends, somewhere that does have power. Close down everything that you can to, concentrate yourselves in one room, and you can stay a little bit warmer that way. But have a plan on where you can go if you can't stay in your house. Okay. Moving on to snow and ice outside. One, look at your lease and make sure you know whether you're responsible for shoveling the driveway, the sidewalks, and the walkways, or if the landlord is supposed to do that. Cassandra will go into it in a minute, but there's a lot of reasons to do this because of there are city ordinances on how that has to be done and how fast that is. So we'll go through all of the cities and the city ordinances that we were able to find. But there are fines for these things if you don't take care of the snow and ice. So be aware of that. And if your landlord gets a fine, he's probably going to pass that on to you. So do the best you can if you're responsible for that. And the good thing to do is always stay on top of it. Before I go out and shovel my driveway, and I live out in the country, guys, so, nobody's going to come and do it for me. But, stretch, just like if you were going to do a workout, because you really are working out. And if you are one of those individuals who may not be in the best of shape, pace yourself. Go outside, do a little bit, take breaks, come back inside, have some water or, hot chocolate or whatever, is going to keep you hydrated. Alcohol is not a good hydration, and try to keep the caffeine out too, because I learned that the hard way myself. But stretch, take some breaks, hydrate. Salt only works on ice, not on snow. People argue this with me all the time, but seriously, remove the snow, get to that undercoat of ice, use your salt closest to your house so that you can keep from tracking the sand in as best you can. Use pet-friendly salt if you have animals. And in a lot of cities and communities around, they have these barrels that they set up of sand on the street corners for people to use on the sidewalks and walkways. So I would encourage you to get a bucket, walk down to that, grab a little bit of sand for yourself, and use that on your sidewalk after you've shoveled it to help reduce that slip and fall problem. You will appreciate that. Your neighbors will appreciate it. And a lot of the other things too. One other thing, and I know Cassandra's going to touch on it, but a hot button is always these entries into the corners, and some of those have handicap ramps coming into the sidewalks. Please, folks, I would beg you, do the best you can with keeping those clean and clear. I talk to a lot of people that are using wheelchairs or these little motorized scooters or walkers to get around, and if they can't get over a snowbank to get to the sidewalk, then they're walking in the streets, and that's just not safe. So, do the best you can to do all of that, and again, pace yourself because we don't need anybody having a heart attack. And if you have to get some help, get some help. Okay. Sometimes there's church groups that will help out with that. I know in the fall we rake leaves for people, so you never know. Maybe your neighbor or somebody down the street will be able to help you with the sidewalk too. Okay.
So I just have a little chart here of our service region. I wanted to show you that a lot of the city ordinances are between 24 and 48 hours to remove it from the last snowfall. So Wausau, Wisconsin Rapids, and also Tomahawk, they say within 24 hours of the last snowfall. And then Merrill and Marshfield is 48 hours. So each city has a different fine amount that if it's not removed after a certain amount of time, as in Wausau, after 48 hours, it's a minimum of $90 if the city has to remove it. So get it done. I know it is not explicitly said in a lot of these city ordinances to also clear around the fire hydrants, but we want to reiterate that in regards to the ramp and fire hydrants, make sure those are clear, even if it doesn't say it, because it helps out so much. So also around town, like Dan said, there is the salt buckets, but sometimes they are a mixture of both salt and sand to use. So you can use the combination as well. So I actually pulled up the actual ordinances for each city so you can kind of read what it says and how they deal with the snow and ice removal. So in Wausau, as you can see, it shows that it is within 24 hours. The municipal code is 12.52.030. So get in the habit of learning what your ordinance is locally, as well as what it says in your lease, because your landlord might have some different rule that says it needs to be removed within a certain amount of time. If it's not their responsibility, if it's yours to take care of that, because you might share a unit where you are responsible for the snow removal and then the other neighbor is responsible for lawn care. So it's for the benefit of both of you to get that done. So $90, and that can add up pretty quick if, we have multiple snowstorms going on. A Merrill, section 3291 in the Code of Ordinances. And it also says in here on where you can put the snow. So don't throw it in the street. Don't throw it in someone else's yard. Keep it within your yard, not in any alleyway, that sort of thing. So make sure it's being properly removed and put in the right spot. Marshfield, it actually says from the curb ramps as well. If you're on a corner lot, make sure it's clear. Certain amount of footage they charge if it's not removed after 48 hours. So if they have to remove snow on not more than 200 feet, that is $75. If it's more than 200 feet, that's $90. So it can add up pretty quickly. Wisconsin Rapids, 24 hours. And they don't have explicit charges, but the charges really say how they can charge on the labor, the bookkeeping, the mileage, if anything happens when they're trying to remove it. So there's not a set charge for that. And then I'll pass it back to Dan on staying warm when you're without housing.
So if some of you are not in a house yet, and you're struggling to stay warm now, and we're just now getting into November, the cold weather is really coming. So you guys have been through this before. You all know, utilize those shelters. We have warming centers set up in different communities throughout our area. Um, you know, do whatever you can do to stay warm that way. If you need to go into libraries, make sure you follow the rules of those things. Some of the churches will allow you to come in. In some areas where they still have malls, you can go into the mall. They don't like you standing around or sitting, falling asleep, but you can simply walk through, get a little exercise, and maybe warm up a little bit. But utilize those locations to stay warm and stay safe. If you're fortunate enough to have a car, one, make sure that the car is fueled up and that you have at least shoveled off an area around the vehicle so that you're not trapped inside. But also make sure you check around the tailpipe so that when you are running that vehicle, any of the gas that's coming off isn't venting back into the house. And you're going to know that if that happens. Um, I worry about that a lot, especially older vehicles. This is Wisconsin. Our vehicles rust out, so we got holes all over the place under carriages and in the sidewalls. So you might have drifting carbon monoxide from those exhausts coming in and not even be aware of it. That's one of the reasons why you want to make sure that the area around the vehicle is cleared out of snow. But also look for other community resources that are out there to get boots, socks, blankets, extra warm meals, or even meals that are ready to eat. Make sure you're always dressing in layers. If you're going to be outside and doing exercise and you're bundled up like that, you're going to start to sweat and you're going to get wet inside. So when you start doing those activities, loosen up the clothing a little bit so you've got some of that moisture can evaporate, and then bundle back up when you sit still. But the best thing to do is, again, go to the places that you can go to stay warm. If you are in a vehicle and you're sleeping in a vehicle, keep in touch with family and friends. Let them know that where you are. There are people that are out there that come and check on our homeless populations or unhoused populations. And so don't be afraid to talk to them. Maybe they know some other resources that can help you out, but do the best you can to stay safe and stay warm and help each other out that way. Okay. If you have to run your vehicle, run it for intermittent periods. Don't run it all the time. That's really hard on vehicles. So run it for 15 minutes, shut it off, and then when it starts getting cold again, run it again. But that's a way to save a little bit of energy, but let's face it, guys, being housed, being indoors is going to be a whole lot warmer than it is being outside. So with that, I'm going to say, let's just, stay safe, look out for yourself and each other, and, let's make it through this. Okay. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to Cassandra or I. Talk to any of the community resources that are out there. Here in Wausau, we got the Good Shepherd Shelter. The Salvation Army has a shelter. Our women's community has a shelter. And in other cities, there's also several shelters, Family Center down in Wisconsin Rapids, and so forth. So reach out to those and get the help that you need, and just stay safe in this winter. Okay. Anything else to add?
I want to thank everyone for viewing this video. If you have any questions about what we shared, please feel free to reach out to myself or Dan. Otherwise, there are some great resources that are listed in the video. Like I said, we are here to help and help you learn and grow as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.